of the unlimited orders of complexity increasing with each morning's awakening. I offer my thanks before you, God of life, and lifting me once again with your grace has renewed for me today my soul and body. For this continuing blessing of life, I offer my thanks.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. So now we'll go to Elohai. Ami, do you want to lead Elohai?
Sure.
Ami, if there's anything you want to lead that we're not asking, just
Oh, sure.
unmute and let us know.
Okay. So the middle Hebrew paragraph, the words are Elohai neshama shenatata bi tehorahi. The soul you have given me is pure. She is pure. Feminine. Let's put this on here, and we shall sing. Elohai neshama shenatata bi tehorahi. 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 Neshama shenatata bi tehorahi. My God, the soul you have placed within me is pure. My God, the soul you've placed within me, she is pure. My God, the soul you've placed within me, she is pure. My God, the soul you have placed within me, she is pure. The soul you've placed within me, she is pure. The soul you've placed within me, she is pure. Ya la 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 la.
Thank you, Ami. So let's stop sharing for a moment and just lead us in a body meditation. Welcome you. Welcome everybody who's joined us since I saw your faces after the screen sharing. I'm just going to mute everyone so we're not getting background noise for now. So I'm going to invite you to close your eyes and we're just going to do a grounding meditation to bring us present, and it's connected to the morning prayer where we're expressing thanks for the miracle of our body. As I've said in our services before, we start with, to me, I hold two aspects of our morning services: the awe and wonder of life and miracle and all that the world offers us, and also prayer as a path of radical call to liberation, so that our prayers actually uplift us and inform us for how to engage in the world to transform it. So I'm going to start. So we're starting with the prayers of awe and appreciation of our lives. So I invite you to close your eyes, as I said, and let's just take a few deep breaths together and feel ourselves arrive here to Shabbat morning. Let's start with our eyes. Give gratitude for our eyes, for the ways that they allow us to see and take in information from the world, and to see all of its amazing beauty and glory. And the way it connects with our mind so we can really take it all in complex ways and appreciate it. And now move to our ears, and feel free, if it helps you, to touch those parts of your body as I say them, if that's something you want to do. I'm grateful for our ears, all the components of our ears, all the many different aspects of our ears that allow us to hear all the beautiful voices and music and sounds, all the creativity, the miraculous sounds of the universe itself, and also that helps us keep our balance and stability. And our mouth and our teeth and our jaw and our tongue that allow us to taste, and our nose and smell and talk. Our vocal cords allow us to talk and sing and chew. And our throat allows us to swallow our food and bring it into our digestive system that allows us to digest our food, hopefully with great ease, and take the nutrients and energy from that food and nourish our bodies and souls, and with ease dispose of those parts of the food that we eat that we do not need and release them. And our heart, thank our hearts every day. Our heart pumps and pumps and pumps blood through our veins and arteries throughout our whole body. It nourishes us and keeps us alive. And we don't even think about it or know it half the time, probably way more than half the time, but there it is doing its job all the time. And also our heart, which radiates love and compassion and empathy, and allows us to feel connected so deeply to others, and to feel the calling of that which burns inside of us, and also the pain and sorrow and joy of others and of the universe. Thank you, heart, for all of the amazing gifts you give us. And our lungs, breathe into our lungs, which are really in your back. Feel the breath as it comes into our bodies, transforms it into oxygen that we use to cleanse and heal ourselves, to find our centers when we're feeling uncentered, to be grounded. And then we breathe it back out as carbon dioxide, and the trees use it for their life energy. And in this beautiful, miraculous cycle of giving and receiving, of breath, of life's breath, that keeps us all connected in a perfect, sustainable ecosystem. And the lungs, I'm picturing in this moment just what our lungs look like and how that mirrors onto what the treetops look like in the rainforest, the lungs of our planet, and the deep wisdom of the universe, that our individuality is such a reflection of the collective, and the collective a reflection of the micro. Such a beautiful, amazing reality. And we'll give thanks now for all our bones and muscles and ligaments and tendons. Start with our neck and shoulders. We could rub our neck and shoulders. I don't know about you, but sitting in front of a computer so much, my neck and shoulders are quite sore. And our arms and our wrists and our hands and our fingers, we spend a lot of time typing and doing. Our hands do so much for us. I give thanks for our ribs that hold our body and our frame together. I injured my ribs a little bit, so I'm particularly aware of their fragility and the importance of their connection to our whole well-being and sense of well-being. And our spine, our whole spine that runs from the bottom of our neck all the way down to our tailbone, that gives us the capacity to move our body, to sit straight and feel solid and feel good. And our hips and our pelvis and our genitals and our legs and our knees and our lower legs and our ankles and our feet and our toes that move us into this world, keep us grounded. And every bone and muscle and joint and ligament and tendon that I forgot to mention. And our skin, the biggest organ in our body that holds it all together in a nifty package that allows us to move as one whole. And even though there's separate components, we're all connected as a whole, like all of us to each other and the universe. And our brain and mind, the power and capacity of our brain and mind, sometimes it serves us in such amazingly wonderful ways, and sometimes it guides us in ways that don't necessarily serve life or love. And so let's be grateful for our brains and minds, for its capacity to see and take in all that the world and universe has to offer us, and it gives us the capacity to learn and grow and expand our understanding and consciousness, to have rich conversations, to read amazing, amazing things and take them in. And now, as we give gratitude for the intellect of our brain, let's bow our head to our heart so that we can remind ourselves of the deep importance of the connection, to connect our brain and our mind to our heart, so that it's guided also by the wisdom of love and compassion and empathy, so that we can find the paths that we need for our own self-healing, for our own lives to be filled and guided with love and compassion, and also for our engagement with the world, so that we can bring our most wise hearts and souls and minds to the work at hand. Amen. When you're ready, you can lift your head and open your eyes. So now we will go to the morning blessings, which I just have to find on my screen. There they are. Just share them with you. So many moving pieces on Zoom. Okay. Got them. So I invite you to sing along with me. I make them a little bit bigger. No, it's too big. Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who awakens our consciousness to see and celebrate the awe of the universe. Baruch atah Shechina Ruachei haolamim, who has given our people responsibility to love the stranger and pursue justice for all. Join with me. Baruch atah Shechina Ruachei haolamim, who has made me in your image, giving me the capacity to partner with you to transform the world.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who has made me free, so I can help others become more truly free as well.
Amen.
Ruchat Yashechina Ruachei Ha'olamim, who opens the eyes of the blind and helps us see what we must do to fulfill your call to build a loving and just world.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who calls us to provide resources to those in need.
Amen.
Ruchat Yashechina Ruachei Ha'olamim, who releases the imprisoned and releases us from our prisons of fear, so we can reach out to others with love.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who moves us beyond our constricted limitations, giving us the capacity to stretch beyond our comfort zone.
Amen.
Ruchat Yashechina Ruachei Ha'olamim, who stretches earth over the waters and gives us a solid foundation in times of uncertainty.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who creates abundantly and rouses us to meet others' needs.
Amen.
Ruchat Yashechina Ruachei Ha'olamim, who guides our karmic path and calls us to pray with our feet.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who girds all God wrestlers with the strength to speak truth to power and challenge injustice.
Amen.
Ruchat Yashechina Ruachei Ha'olamim, who crowns me with the capacity to see beauty in the world and in all beings.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who gives strength to the weary so we can recommit and return and again to work for peace and justice. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, who removes the tiredness from our bodies, the sleepiness from our eyes, and opens our consciousness to see beyond our inner selves and calls us to use our capacities to heal and transform the world.
Amen.
Amen. You want to go to page 16? Do you want to have someone read one of the?
Whatever you want, darling.
Okay. Does somebody want to read a page or two in our prayer book? I'll screen share it. Somebody want to? Go ahead, Jeff. I'll screen share it right now. Thank you. Unless someone else will mute it.
Source, but I have to move you. Source of cosmic multiplicity. Happiness abounds in the confident human. Fount of transformations, responsive force to those who yearn for change. Transform your peoples. Bless your inheritance. Lift us beyond our smallness of vision to that of the vast. Our souls so long for the spiritual. It uplifts and guides us. In it we find our heart's joy because we are confident in the ultimate wholeness. Wait, I got to move you over here. There we go. We are looking for a vision of tender kindness, following guidance with yearning intuition, a vision of our place in your plan, a taste of completeness. Shine your attention on us and support us in our chosen paths, that we may fulfill your best vision for our world. I am your God and guide who extricates you from the difficult places in your lives. Open the pores of your being and I will enter therein. Open your mouth and my spirit will fill it. Happy is a nation thus spoken to. Happy is a people who recognizes its path to the divine. And I, for my part, trust in your kindness. My heart will rejoice in serving your plan. My heart will sing to the one who completes it with love.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. Beautiful. So now we're going to turn to Marge Piercy's beautiful poem. I can do it this way. Here we go. The interpretive Nishmat. And I think I'll read it because I know it well. So I invite you to read along or just close your eyes and listen to the beautiful vision she provides us of the excuse me, of the all of life celebrating and awakening to the awe of the universe. I have a frog in my throat this morning. When the night slides under with the last dimming star and the red sky lightens between the trees, and the heron glides tipping heavy wings in the river, when crows stir and cry out their harsh joy, and swift creatures of the night run toward their burrows, and the deer raises her head and sniffs the freshening air, and the shadows grow more distinct and then shorten. Then we rise into the day, still clean as snow. The cat washes its paw and greets the day with gratitude. Leviathan salutes, breaching with a column of steam. The hawk, turning in the sky, cries out a prayer like a knife. We must wonder at the sky, now thin as a speckled eggshell, that now piles up its boulders of storm to crash down, that now hangs a furry gray belly into the street. Every day we find a new sky and a new earth with which we are trusted like a perfect toy. We are given the salty river of our blood, winding through us to remember the sea and our kindred under the waves, the hot pulsing that knocks in our throats to consider our cousins in the grass and the trees, all bright, scattered rivulets of life. We are given the wind within us, the breath to shape into words that steal time, that touch like hands and pierce like bullets, that waken truth and deceit, sorrow and pity and joy, that waste precious air in complaints, in lies, in floating traps for power on the dirty air. Yet holy breath still stretches our lungs to sing. We are given the body, that momentary kibbutz of elements that have belonged to frog and polar bear, corn and oak tree, volcano and glacier. We are lent for a time these minerals in water, and a morning every day, a morning to wake up, rejoice, and praise life in our spines, our throats, our knees, our genitals, our brains, our tongues. We are given the fire to see against the dark, to think, to read, to study how we are to live, to bank in ourselves against defeat and despair that cool and muddy our resolves, that make us forget what we saw we must do. We are given passion that rises like the sun in our minds with the new day and burn the debris of habit and greed and fear. We stand in the midst of the burning world, primed to burn with compassionate love and justice, to turn inward and see the world that is all of one flesh with us. See under the trash, through the smog, the furry bee in the apple blossom, the trout leaping, the candles our ancestors lit for us. Fill us as a tide rustles the reeds in the marsh. Fill us as a rushing water overflows the pitcher. Fill us as a light fills a room with its dancing. Let the little quarrels of the bones and the snarling of the lesser appetites and the whining of the ego cease. Let silence still us, so you may show us your shining, and we can, out of that stillness, rise and praise. And so now we're going to go outside and do our morning outdoor prayer. So I'm going to, for a moment, there's going to be silence because I got to switch the volumes on the computers. So give me 1 second.
Why don't we sing while we're waiting? Hallelujah, just the simple words. Hallelujah. Let's praise. Let's praise that Cat is finding the controls.
And get up. Go ahead and get up and dance.
Get up and move your body. You've acknowledged your good bodies and your good souls. Now stand up or sit down and use them. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Kol hanshama tehallel Yah. Every breath will praise Yah. Kol hanshama tehallel Yah. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Kol hanshama tehallel Yah. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Everyone looks kind of static. Let's see you move a little bit. Move your fingers. Kol hanshama tehallel Yah. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Kol hanshama tehallel Yah. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Kol hanshama, every living breath, every soul. Kol hanshama tehallel Yah. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Kol hanshama tehallel Yah. Hallelujah, hallelujah. One more time. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Kol hanshama tehallel Yah. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Kol hanshama tehallel Yah. Hallelujah, hallelujah.
Thank you, Ami. Beautiful. So here we are outside, and we just always like to go outside to celebrate the awe. You can hear me, right? Cool, I did it. Celebrate the awe and wonder of this universe. So I'm gonna take a moment to just show you, for those of you who are inside or can't enjoy the outside at the moment, I'll just show you the beautiful universe. And there's the sun, which we're gonna sing to in a moment. What an amazing, amazing gift that we have this universe to be in and enjoy. So now I'm gonna share our screen again for those words. And you know, if we're not following the words exactly, or you don't follow the words on the screen, just la la la. Just celebrate the universe. That's what this is all about. So in whatever way that resonates for you, just go for it. Ready?
Yeah.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Yotzer or uborei hosher, osa shalom uborei et hakol. We are grateful to you, Goddess, for creating this
incredible
universe with 100 billion galaxies, but the Milky Way would have been plenty for us. And we are grateful for the sun, Hashemesh hazorachat al pnei haaretz, giving us light and giving us warmth,
so that life
can develop and evolve in a zillion amazing ways. And we are grateful for the light that makes it possible for us to see the beauty around us.
The trees,
The water.
the water, the hills of Marin.
Maybe you can see the desert.
The hills of San Francisco.
The hills of San Francisco. Anyone else? Call out what you see that you're grateful for.
The Gulf of Mexico.
Nice.
Okay. The flowers.
Tree.
The tree, nice.
The mountains of chestnuts.
Oh,
Yes.
nice.
Mountains of chestnuts.
Yay. I'm grateful for our doggies that I can see. It's such an amazing universe. And now, the sun. The sun. We're grateful to you. Da, 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 da,
The sun.
The sun.
The sun.
The sun.
Ay, ay, la, la, la. Ay, ay, la, la. Ay, ay, la. Ay, ay, la, 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 la.
Ay, da, 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 da. And we are grateful for photosynthesis that gives us delicious fruits and veggies that nourish our bodies. And we are grateful to you, Goddess, for renewing every day the events of creation. Chamechadeshet betuva bechoyam tamid maaseh vereshit. Or hadash al Tzion v'hakolam ta'ir v'niske kulanu mehera le'oro rucha adya shechina yotzeret hame'oro.
So this one. Do whatever you want. Yeah, so the next, we have a bunch of Hebrew for this next prayer. So I just want to say, Ahava Rabbah Ahavtanu. With great love, you loved us, God. Chemla Gedola V'Teira Chamata Aleinu. And you poured out compassion to us and caring for us. Avinu Makenu, Father, our King,
Our Pathfinder.
Our Pathfinder, right? Our Pathfinder, Ba'avur Horenu, because for the sake of our past generations, Shabbat Chuvecha, that trusted in you, teach us also. Teach us how to live. Avinu Havrachaman, the merciful one, have mercy on us. And give us the ability to understand and to discern, to hear, and to teach others, and to uphold all the words of your teachings to us.
In love.
And so open our eyes.
This we have. This we have. This
Okay.
we have in translation.
Okay, good.
The rest of it we have, after we do the Hebrew, we have the translation. So.
Ahava Rabbah Ahavtanu, Adonai Eloheinu, Chemla Gdola V'Teira, Chamalta Aleinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Ba'avur Horeinu, Shebatchu V'cha, Horeinu Moreinu, V'tilamdenu kehayim, Ken techalenu lamdenu, Avinu ha'av ha'rachaman, Amrachem rachem aleinu. v'tein b'libeinu lehavin, lehavin lahaskil lishmoa, lilmadu lelamed, lishmor v'la'asod, lekayem ekol divrei Talmud Toratecha v'ahava, v'ha'er einenu b'toratecha, v'dahabek libeinu b'mitzvotecha, v'yached levaveinu le'ahava u'yira et shemecha, v'lo nevosh,
No way.
le'olam ba'ed, v'lo nevosh, le'olam enlighten our eyes to your Torah, and let our hearts cleave to your mitzvot, and unify our consciousness to love and to be in awe
of you.
And we will not be embarrassed
No way.
to declare the possibility of a world based on love, kindness, and generosity, social and economic justice, environmental sanity, evolution of the consciousness of all humanity. Ya la 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 la, ya la la ya la, ya la la ya la la, ya la 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 la, ya la la ya la, ya la 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 la, ya la la ya la la, ya la la la. Avienu l'shalom me'arbakim fotaaretz,
Bring us from the four corners of the earth.
v'talicheinu kamu l'etzenu ki apo yeshuot
Let
ata,
us come together and unify as one,
uvanu v'acharta im kolam
and
b'lashon.
to speak with one voice of love and compassion.
Keravtanu l'shimcha l'sala b'emet, l'hodot lecha, l'yachedcha v'yahava, brucha yashechina,
Aboheret
be'ama Yisrael,
b'yama Yishmael.
v'chol yoshvei tevel, be'ahava Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Shema
Yisrael, Shechina Eloheinu, Shechina Echad.
Ve'ahavta
et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavcha ubechol nafshecha ubechol meodecha vehayu advarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, ושבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. And it shall come to pass, if you love the spiritual transformative power of the universe with all your heart, all your soul, and all your passions, and use that energy to build a world based on these mitzvot, a world of love and care, kindness and generosity, social, economic, and environmental justice, and ecological sustainability, then the world will work
The sun will shine, the rain will fall, the earth will give forth its produce, and you and your animals will eat and be satisfied.
Okay, good.
But be careful, watch out.
Uh-oh.
Because if you don't build a world based on these mitzvot, and instead build one based on selfishness and greed, constantly hoarding and chasing after more money, power, fame, and land, building roads for some and not others, political systems for some and not others, economic systems that work for the 1% on the backs of the 99%, and social systems that don't work equally for all, then just as those political, economic, and social systems are unbalanced and begin to unravel and not serve the well-being of all, so too will the environmental and ecological systems and structures of the universe itself fundamentally unravel and become unbalanced. There will be a series of environmental catastrophes and plagues,
Oy,
from pandemics
oy,
to hurricanes, to rising sea levels that
Aye.
sweep away islands and lives,
oy,
to droughts and famine.
oy.
And eventually, although you may think you will not be affected, eventually you and your animals as well will be wiped off from the face of this good earth.
Oy, 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 oy.
God spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, put tzitzit in the corners of your garment, put a blue thread in them," which we need to do so that we're reminded again and again, so that when we look at it, it awakens us from our sleepiness and drowsiness. And to look at these tzitzit as reminders, not only reminders, but also to call us into action, to actually build and create a loving and just world.
Mm.
And God continued,
Ani Adonai.
and God continued and said to Moses, "I am the transformative power of the universe. I brought you out of the narrow consciousness of slavery, of constriction. I showed you that systems and structures of oppression created by human beings can be overthrown and built a world of love and justice. That is who I am. I am that force in truth. Ani Adonai Elohechem, asher tzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, lihiyot lahem le'Elohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem emet." So we're about to go into singing the celebratory song that the women sang after we crossed through the Sea of Reeds. To celebrate our liberation, I always like to say, and at this moment, take a moment and ask yourself, because we are free today, or relatively free today, what steps are you going to take in the next week? What can you commit to in the next week to actually work in solidarity with others so that in fact we can all be free, because it takes all of us to build a free and just world, and all of us to be involved in movements for transformation to create that world. And after we do this song, then we'll go into the silent meditation, the Amidah, which are on pages, what pages?
35 to 50.
35 to 50, so you can follow that along in the English. We'll go offline for a little bit. I mean, we won't turn off the machine, but we won't be here.
How is the 35?
I'm not gonna be able to show it. And it won't be on the screen because I'm not gonna be able to screen through it. So if you have it, you can do that. Otherwise, you can sit in silent meditation, reflect on the beauty of the universe and the call of the universe for you to partner with it to build a loving and just world, or you can use any meditation focus or intention you want, or the mantra of our community.
I am part of the unity of all being,
a manifestation of God's love on earth. And I will put that in the chat after Mecha Mocha. I am part of the unity of all being, a manifestation of God's love on earth.
Is there a way that people can get the whole thing?
I can't put, I'll try to put in the link to grab the whole prayer book online, but if you go to Beit Tikkun prayer book, it's also been sent out before. Okay. Ready? Mecha Mocha.
מי כמוך בעלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה, שירה חדשה שיבחו גאולים, לשמך על שפת הים, יחד כולם הודו, והמליכו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. צור ישראל קומה בעזרת ישראל, ופדקנו ממך, יהודה וישראל. גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו, קדוש ישראל. ברוכה את ישכינה, גאלת Yisrael. Thank you for putting the link to the prayer book in the chat. I appreciate that. So we're going to go into the silent, you can see me now. We're going to go into the silent meditative prayer. And when we come back, we'll start our Torah study. And I will put the, in a moment, when I get down, before I can put my computer down, I'll put in the meditation. But we'll be back in about 8 to 10 minutes.
Unmute. Ah, was that what was wrong?
I don't know.
Was it on unmute? Was it on mute?
I have no idea. So,
We don't want them to hear us. Start video. Take that out.
You might as well be on.
We can hear you. Why can't we hear him? Maybe you have to go there. More.
Boy, Neil's getting really like, wow, man.
Yeah,
It's great.
I think you have to click that.
Could everyone please mute? Thank you. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל העולם ואמרו אמן. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל העולם. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל העולם ואמרו amen.
Keep going, Ami. Keep going for a minute or two. Michael's still praying on me. Thank you.
יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל העולם. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל העולם. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל העולם. עוד יבוא שלום עלינו, עוד יבוא שלום עלינו, עוד יבוא שלום עלינו ועל כולם. עוד יבוא שלום עלינו, עוד יבוא שלום עלינו, עוד יבוא שלום עלינו ועל כולם. Is Michael returned?
We're going to go to the blessing before the Torah reading on page 69.
Hang on.
What?
1 second. I got to get us there.
Okay.
Page what? 69?
69.
Watch this. Voila. Why did it go to 66? Oh, I know why I went to 66. Okay. Here we go. Here? No, you want further down. Which part do you want? You want this part? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm going to get you the chumash.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvarach, Baruch Adonai Hamvarach le'olam va'ed, Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, asher bachar banu im kol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato, Baruch ata Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Amen.
So I have,
So,
do you want me to share the,
yeah.
okay, so I have the Safario to share the Parsha. I just lost my words. So I will do that. And then if somebody wants to read, Yitz, are you able to see the screen well enough to read some of the Parsha for us? That's cool.
Can you say a word of what is the Parsha, where we are, what chapter, what book?
Yep.
Yes.
Thanks.
Okay. We're in the book of Deuteronomy. If you have, we will get it up on the screen.
It's on the screen.
What?
It's on the screen.
Okay. Well, in the book of Deuteronomy, and we are on chapter 3, sentence 27. And the context of Deuteronomy, which we started to read last week, but we didn't have a service last week, but we've skipped from where well, actually at the end of the last book of the previous book of Torah in the desert, Bamidbar, Midbar, also known as Numbers, there was a big jump from most of the book, which was a continuation of the first few years in the desert, to the end of the time in the desert. And the people of Israel have now been able to stand really on the borders of the promised land. And so this is the moment, right, when we would be going into the promised land. And the whole book of Deuteronomy is really Moses's farewell address, actually several different addresses, farewell addresses. And Moses, so now what's happened is that we've gone through a period of 40 years, and the 40 years were the time supposedly in which all the people who had been engaged, or all the people who were over 20 years old or older, who had been engaged in the series of rebellions against God, the final one being the rebellion which they, having heard the spies' story about the land of Israel being impossible to go into, they began to once again cry and say, if only we had died in Egypt, what are we doing out here? And like that. Okay, so God said, okay, this generation can't go into the new land, and you're going to stay in the desert until all those who have been 20 and older die off, and a new generation will come. So the book of Deuteronomy is Moses's now summing up the experience of what they have learned, or what he hopes they have learned. And so he's giving a series of talks about what happened. However, in the midst of this, one of the things that happened was that God had told him, one of the big complaints that they had was, hey, there's no water. That happened after Miriam died, because Miriam was the one who was able to find the water, or discern where the water was, or in a more spiritual sense, that nourishment, that kind of female nourishment that came from her. After she died, it was gone, and people were again saying the same thing. Let's go back to Egypt. Okay, so we're desperate for the water that she brought. So God tells Moses, go, see that rock there, that big rock, it's over the water. if you go and speak to the rock, it will give forth water. And Moses goes, and being so annoyed at the people, he strikes the rock several times, and the water does come out on the basis of his the magical powers of his staff. But God turns to Moses and says, because you didn't trust in me, because you didn't give me, you didn't believe in the possibility that from the hard place would come a soft place, that from a difficult situation could come a nourishing situation. You're not going. You can't lead these people into the promised land. And now, 40 years later, okay, so that was 40 years later, or actually it's probably 39 years later. Moses is, the people are now, a new generation is in front of Moses, and Moses is going to tell the story of all that happened. However, it's slightly different story than the one that we read in the past, because this is all through Moses's perception, whereas the rest is the first 4 books are partly Moses, but partly other people. And of course, we know that probably all these stories were and various folk tale were put together to create the Torah. But in any event, in this version, in this book, the book of Deuteronomy, or Devarim, which is more accurate, Davar meaning either thing or speech. So these are speech acts of Moses. And in this one, Moses is wanting to tell the story, but as he starts to tell the story last week, he's mostly telling it in such a way as to blame the people, everybody, all the people, for having made it so hard for him that he did things that were wrong, that made God angry at him. And so so he's been seething basically with anger. Now, of course, anger is no new thing for Moses, and it was there are many different interpretations about why God wouldn't let Moses go there. And one of the first ones is, you didn't listen to God. Okay, you didn't listen to what God was telling you. But that seems like a flimsy one, because hey, everybody gets things wrong from time to time, and some of us screwed up. But no, it's that so a more serious explanation that some of the commentators give is he had an anger problem. He couldn't control his anger, and here he is doing it again in the first 3 chapters of the book of Deuteronomy. He has an anger problem, and we don't want that to be the leadership. So that's one sort of well-known explanation of why he can't go in. Now, I want to build on that just for a second to say that it's also that it's that Moses is somebody who reverts to violence, to at least to because it's not only here. It's remember that at his very beginning, when he saw the oppression of the Israelites, that he killed one of the people who was oppressing an Israelite slave. Well, one can understand people getting that way, but to kill the other person, not really in our tradition. To kill the oppressor, we've got to find another way, and that comes up again when he in the story of the giving of the 10 speech acts and the Torah on Mount Sinai. While he's up there and he doesn't come down on the 40th day, he said they was going to be up there for 40 days, and He doesn't come down, and the people go to Aaron and say, "Make us a god," and Aaron does that, and a golden calf. And Moses comes down, and he sees this, and he's so filled with anger that he asks those who are on his side to go and kill the people who have been worshiping this golden calf. And according to the story, it's several thousand people that are killed there. So Moses, and that was another moment of Moses's anger. And now, then we have this story of then God not being willing to listen to God's approach. So it's really a question of violence or nonviolence. Now, we don't need a leader who is not committed to a nonviolent path. Now, you might think that's a bit of a stretch because it certainly doesn't say that there, but
We don't need a leader?
what?
We don't need a leader who's committed on violent path? Is that what he said?
Okay, you might not believe that we don't need a leader
Oh,
with,
okay. I
with,
misunderstood
with
you.
a nonviolent path, but actually, that's what we do need. But the reason why you wouldn't believe it is because if we believe the ongoing story, it turns out that who is going to lead? The person who's going to lead is Joshua, and there are in this book of Deuteronomy, and we'll read it. And I don't think we'll read that today, but there are various times in which God is being quoted as saying, "Go in there and wipe out all the people who are there." And so, how could he possibly think that Moses's problem was an anger when God seems to be encouraging violence against the people who live there? Okay, so but no, I haven't quite finished yet.
Okay.
Okay, so the answer is this, and this is something that if you've been studying with me on the Torah portion for a while, or Torah portions, you'll probably remember this point, that actually the Torah has been put together by people, a bunch of people, and whether that have assembled the various stories of the past, and the stories that get assembled have reflect two different worldviews that are reflected in the Torah itself, and these two different worldviews actually emerged from at least let's say at least good 6,000 years before the events that are now being depicted. Before there was a Jewish people. Thousands of years before there was a Jewish people, about the time of about 8,000 BCE, before the Common Era, 8,000 years, and some people say it's someplace between 8,000 and 6,000 years, that class, society, and patriarchy evolved. And class, society, and patriarchy were both ways of looking at the world that gave power to those who were into violence and domination and using, if necessary, cruelty to impose their will on others. On the case of men over women, and in the case of a small elite of men over all other men and all other women. So from there, you get a worldview that says the way the world is such that everybody is going to be pushing for themselves, out for the number one, and likely to dominate and control you unless you can dominate and control them first. And this is how the world is. And this is the worldview of domination or power, power over others, and says, that's how it is. This is the reality of the world, and you have to adjust to that. Now, human beings didn't start with class society. They were, on various estimates, at least 80 to 100,000 years of prehistory before the beginning of class society and patriarchy, that that coincided with the development of city-states, and city-states that basically started to develop the notion of private property, and this is ours, and in order to protect ourselves from others who were part of the gathering of food wherever they could find it, or hunting for food, but they were not agricultural. They didn't have a place. But others, these wanderers, had a lot of insecurity, let's say, in whether they were going to find enough food for their people. So when people started to develop class societies and agriculture, they built that around agriculture, the notion that this is ours, we own it, we have a right to it, we control this. And now, what about all those other people who are still hunter-gatherers? Well, we've got to keep them out somehow. How? By force and violence. And so the cities these cities are like a city that we're talking about 8,000 to 6,000 years ago were about the size of a block that you live in if you're living in an urban area. Okay, the whole city is, and they built some walls around it, and then they developed weapons to use against the people who were hunter-gatherers who might be coming to my private property. You have no business here. Okay, so this worldview is an intense domination worldview, not sharing worldview. It's mine, not yours, etc. However, before that, for the past 94,000 years of human life, before that, there had already been developed a different worldview that was a worldview of kindness, generosity, love. So this other worldview is not articulated anymore in the class societies, and it's almost lost entirely until the Jewish people come forward. And the Jewish people, and maybe other peoples as well, I don't want to say it's just us, but we're the ones that we know about, let's say, they come forward and say, no, the world can be based on love, kindness, generosity in a different way. And now that worldview, that alternative worldview that is talking about love, bi'ahavta, you should love, that worldview is not one which everybody accepts. On the contrary, in the Jewish people, both people, there is that this alternative worldview that it has some tradition, but there's also the worldview of domination. And so when the stories get assembled to put together the Torah, try to imagine a committee, because the story we have is that it was the Anshe Knesset Hagdolah, the big assembly of enlightened teachers, let's say, who get together and take all the different parts that have been held, the various stories, and they put together this Torah. But the Torah, wherever you find some liberation consciousness, some love consciousness, some generosity consciousness in Torah, then you look, then almost immediately the other wing, the domination wing, will feel the need to say, but wait a second, let's remind everybody that we need power and domination and control. And so the Torah has both voices in it. This is not surprising because we all have both voices in it. Even today, we still have that. Not just Jews, but everybody on the planet has both the call to build a world of love and the other side that says, impossible, forget it, domination and control is the way to go, and that's the way we have to organize our society. So that's important to get in understanding why then it's so important to have leaders, at least, who are able to hear the voice of God in our Torah, calling people for liberation, love, generosity, kindness. But as I said, also you'll hear God's voice being portrayed as domination, control, wipe out the others, etc. The good news that we get from anthropology is that the role of Joshua and of domination and wiping out the people of the land never happened. It never happened. That's not how the people got together. So this is a story, and there's a reason why that story was developed. It had to do with the powerlessness that the Israelites were facing when many hundreds of years after this time of Moses, that they were conquered by Babylonia and brought into exile. And it was there that that people needed to hear a story of Jewish of empowerment, including military empowerment or domination empowerment. And so they developed those stories also. So then they became a part of what gets put together when hundreds of years after that. But we know about that that first part from Tisha B'Av, because from what we read on Tisha B'Av, because allegedly that story of that's read in the book of Lamentations is about this first conquest after the destruction of the first temple by the Babylonians. And so we'll get to that in a little bit. But in any event, you can see why then if you're wanting Moses, the hero of our people, to be an embodiment of the loving energy, then it's very difficult to say he should be leading us into whatever the promised land really stands for. And it may not be a land physically, it may be a state of consciousness that we need to go to. So that's the answer to Ami's question of where are we in this story? And we're here, and so Moses is continuing his talk.
Do you want me to share now?
Yeah, and Moses is continuing his talk to the people, and Va'et Hanan. So who is somebody going to?
Yep, said he would.
Who?
I think Yitz, are you game for sharing, first reading from here?
Sure. ואת חנן אל אדוני בעת ההיא לאמור, אדוני אלוהים, אתה חילותך להראות את עבדך, את גודלך ואת ידך החזקה, אשר מיל בשמיים ובארץ, אשר יעשך מעשיך וכי גבורתך. How much do you want me to? Should we do?
Could read another verse or two in Hebrew, and then go back and start from the beginning in English. Okay.
Okay. אברנה וראה את הארץ הטובה אשר בעבר הירדן, ההר הטוב הזה והלבנון, וידבר אדוני בי למענכם, ולא שמע אלי, ויאמר אדוני אלי רב לך, אל תוסף, דבר אלי עוד בדבר הזה. Should we go back now?
To the beginning and start to read this and the next chapter.
I pleaded with the Eternal One at that time, saying, O Eternal One, God, Adonai Elohim, you who let Your servants see the first works of your greatness and your mighty hand. You whose powerful deeds no God in heaven or on earth can equal. You scroll down. Let me, I pray, cross over and see the good land on the other side of the Jordan, that good hill country, and the Lebanon. But the Eternal One was wrathful with me on your account and would not listen to me. The Eternal One said to me, enough, never speak to me of this matter again. Go up to the summit of Pisgah and gaze about to the west, the north, the south, and the east. Look at it well, for you shall not go across yonder Jordan. Give Joshua his instructions, and imbue him with strength and courage, for he shall go across at the head of this people, and he shall allot to them the land that you may only see. Meanwhile, we stayed on in the valley near Beth Peor. Do you want to keep going from there too? Michael, you're muted. And Kat? Yeah.
I unmuted him.
Yeah, stay here for a little bit. There's much commentary on this exchange between Moses and God, and Moses is still trying to convince God to change God's mind about him not going in there, and God becomes angry at him, and says, Ravlach. Let's see where. You have enough. Let's see if I can. Yeah, it's on Ravlach. You have. There's enough for you. You've had enough. So this is a difficult thing that happens, I think, for many people as they're about to die, which is they look at their lives or we look at our lives, and there are visions we had of what we were going to accomplish in our life, where we were going to be, as we approach the time when death is ahead of us, there are many people who go to thinking about, I didn't do what I really wanted to do. I didn't accomplish all I wanted to accomplish, and it's sad when you get into that consciousness, and so God's answer is Ravlach, which means you've had plenty. There's a lot that you have you need to focus on that, not on what you had hoped would be the end of your life and all its accomplishments, but all that has happened. You've had incredible opportunities. You've lived in a world in which you didn't die when you were 20. You didn't you didn't get the pandemic when you were 40. You've had a lot. You've had a lot already, and now it's like enough. You don't have to feel bad about all that you've accomplished. You can you imagine if Moses is feeling like he didn't accomplish anything? He didn't have enough, but he needed another thing. On the one hand, I'd say I want to feel compassion for him because why? He had gone through all of this struggle in order to bring people to the land of promise. And on the other hand, God thinks he's not the right one to take the next step. And that is often hard for somebody to hear. But this experience is Kat put it last night when we were studying this, that it was like why we sing Dayenu. You know, if you'd only done this, you'd only taken us out of the land of Egypt, but you'd not brought us to Mount Sinai, Dayenu. It's enough. It's enough for us. And being able to say that to ourselves, to actually get to the point where we can say, Dayenu. What happened? Whoops.
He's going to take over sharing.
Okay. Ravlach, it's good that you've had enough. It's the blessing when you can get to that point where you can say, Dayenu, we've had enough.
I'm going to say something.
Yes. Go ahead.
So I'm leaving. I've been sick on and off, and I'm feeling really sick again. So Nami's going to take over sharing and navigating. So forgive us if there's missteps along the way. Maybe you can just open a whole new
Zoom.
Close Safari and open a new one so that we don't see all these windows, and it might work better if all these windows are closed.
Wait, but when do we need a window for the
Yeah,
text?
but you know, Kat, I don't see your window. I don't
You have to open Safari on your screen.
open Safari. I have to go to the website.
Yep, I'll put the link in the chat.
Oh, okay.
So I suggest you closing all the other windows, otherwise it'll be too slow. And
All my other windows in my.
in your like all your Safari windows, close them all.
I don't have any Safari
There's
windows
something
open.
open. You have all these URLs open. Sorry guys, forgive us.
Um,
Does somebody else know how to do this? Somebody else skilled in sharing screens who could share Safari for
you just
everybody?
send me the link and
I
I'll.
put it in the chat.
Oh, it's in the chat. Okay, let me get it. I'm sorry. Hold on. Let me go.
I can do it if it's difficult for you.
No, it's fine. I just need to get to the chat.
Okay.
Here we go.
And I don't have COVID if you're worried. I have.
Okay.
Kat, Refuah Shalema.
Thank you. I'm
Oh, here we
sorry.
Feel
Sorry
better.
to leave.
Okay, hold on. Yitz, can you lead us in a little nigun for about a minute?
Sure. Nachamu, Nachamu, Nachamu Ami, Nachamu, Nachamu, Nachamu Ani.
Aye.
Umenachemchem, Anochi, Anochi, Umenachemchem, Anochi, Anochi, Umenachemchem, Nachamu, Nachamu, Ami.
Okay. Here we go.
You're able to set up so that
Can you see that?
Yeah.
You can see the scrolling? Okay. Let me
Yes.
just make it a little bigger. Okay, and we are. Yitz, where did you leave off? I'm sorry.
We just read till we were going to be at right there. Well, the guy a little bit lower down. No, I'm sorry, too far. A little bit further back, a little bit more. There we go. That's the last of Meanwhile, we stayed in the valley of Beth Peor.
A Shanam Dunk. Michael?
Yes. Okay, so now is somebody going to read for us the English who was reading before?
Michael, do you mind if I add a twist of an interpretation on this amount that we've already just read? I read it in a very different way this year.
Okay.
And with Bershut, Harav.
Absolutely.
Okay, so, when we read this text, it seems so harsh that here's Moshe pouring out his heart to God, saying, please, Adonai Elohim, God, in all your qualities, I'm asking you, please be gracious to me and let me go into the land. Up to now, Moshe has been able to intercede for the people Israel repeatedly. When God's going to wipe out all the people, he says, please don't. He pleads with God, and God, the divine will changes as a result of Moshe's plead. He's like a Rebbe on the highest level where he can go into heaven and really change things. Here's where he's different. Now he's a human being in a different way with a kind of limitation that he hadn't had before. Here he's pleading for himself, and what we usually read as a very harsh response from God, if we can just scroll up a little bit, I'll keep going. Okay. So here it says, in sentence 26, but the Eternal was wrathful with me on your account and would not listen to me. Well, that word wrathful, in Hebrew, it's vayitaber, and it has, the root of that is ayin bet resh, avar, to go over, to cross over. Avraham is called the one who crossed over, Avraham ha'ivri. And that's what our people are, the Ivrim, we're the ones who go over. Well, God is going over, if we don't read it as wrathful, but rather God goes through a change. God is transformed in this and says, V'yitaber Adonai, and so Moses says, and God was wrathful with me. From his human perspective, here he is a human being now. That limitation that God is setting is extremely painful for Moshe. So he's reading it as God was angry with me, and he says, because of you guys, L'man Chem. And we can read it in a very different way, that God is compassionately saying to Moshe, you can't go on, be happy, Ravlach. You've had enough, there's enough for you. You don't have to go over, and it's not because of the people, but L'ma'an Chem is read just as legitimately as for the sake of the people. The people need a new energy to take them into this next paradigm. And I think that we can read this with a very soft voice of Hashem speaking to Moshe quite lovingly, saying, your portion has been enough, and now go in peace to rest. Go, you've completed your task. And so I just like to add that nuance to this reading, because I think that reading of the harshness of Hashem in this can really be a very narrow limitation on the possibilities of that encounter for Moshe and the divine. So, Dibarti.
Beautiful.
Shamati.
Elu ve'elu, divrei Elohim chaim.
Amen.
Rabbi, may I ask a question?
Yes. Who's that?
It's
Who is
Jeff.
Jeff?
I emailed you yesterday about this parsha. I don't know if you had a chance to read it before today, but what Yitz was just talking about is actually one of the questions I asked you. What was the purpose, from the perspective of the redactors centuries later, what was the purpose of including this? Even if it was about a clean break for Joshua's leadership, or even if we're going to understand it in the way that Yitz just expounded, why have him die in the wilderness frustrated? Why not just let him cross over, look around, see the culmination of his life's work, and then die in his sleep a few weeks later?
Okay. Now you're asking me to know the answer to that question.
Well, don't you know everything?
No, I don't. And I'm not ashamed to admit that.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, we were talking about this last night also, that yes, that would have been an alternative. But there's something else, that another way of understanding God here. Not that I want to justify everything that God does. God is said to do in this, and that is there's a beautiful thing about the way that the Jewish people deal with leaders, and that beautiful thing is that even the most inspiring of our leaders have deep flaws, and we are, there's a time, I've seen this. I saw this in the 60s, and I see it again happening today, where people who have really good intentions and provide smart ideas for leadership nevertheless get attacked by everybody else, and there's a tendency to feel like the leader has too much, that the leader has too much influence, too much power, whatever. And so people try to tear them down. And our tradition was to instead make it impossible for people to glorify the leader, to make it sound like the leader is the next thing to God, to point out their flaws and their weaknesses, and hence to make it possible, not to say that this is actual, but at least make it possible for us to accept leaders with flaws and not expect that they're going to be anything else. But what I saw happening in the 60s, and I see in the early 70s, and I see it happening again today, is that there's a culture of calling out whatever is lacking in somebody and saying, hey, you don't have this, you don't have that. So it's, and one of the forms it takes is, well, you might be good on front A, B, and C, but you're still, and there's now you fill in the blank. You're still a white person with privilege. You're racist, you're sexist, you're homophobic, you're xenophobic, you're anti-Semitic, you have an ego. All these things that are probably partly true, okay? Leaders, and in fact, now we'd say our social change movements, our movements for wanting to build a different world, are going to be flawed, because there's nothing else on the planet but flawed people. There's no way to have a social movement that is a full embodiment of the world we want to get to. We can strive in that direction, but we have to be compassionate also. So, in not allowing Moses to go into the promised land, the text is also giving us an idea that Moses isn't the perfect person either, and reminding us about that and saying, okay, he did a lot of things, wonderful things, amazing things. This is his Torah. We celebrate it. We're still reading it. after thousands of years, we're still reading this thing and reading about, and Moses is the dominant figure in at least from the chapter from the book of Exodus on. And he even gets to be recorded in this last book with all his service and all his upset, but also with lots of great teachings. So that's how I see it. When the book of Deuteronomy ends, it says that Moses was buried and nobody knows where his place was. And the rabbis say, yeah, because we didn't want to have people doing pilgrimages to his grave and making it, turning him into somebody that would be somebody that is worshipped. Okay, I mean, to lahavdil elef havdalot, to make a distinction. This is one of the reasons that the Jewish people had trouble accepting giving the right place or a place of honor to Jesus, was that his followers turned him into a god, and that is a possibility when you have an inspired leader, that people are going to end up giving too much kavod, too much respect, too much, turning them into something that they're not. So that's another possible explanation. I'm sure that you can argue, yeah, but he didn't have to do it that way. God didn't have to do it that way. Okay, now, and again, when we say God, I want to caution us that what we really mean is the way God is being represented by whoever put these portions together. Here, God is being represented as angry and so forth. And I wish that some of these other interpretations were there also. But that's one of the things about this tradition I love, is that it is wide open for interpretations of all sorts. And so, there's a lot of possible ways that one can go with the text. The text is open, wide open for the very questions that you've just raised. So I hope that.
May I make a comment?
Please.
Milton Teichman.
Hi, Milton.
I just wanted to say that I'm troubled by the lines that follow the ones that we've been talking about. I appreciate, Rabbi, the way you interpreted Rav Lecha and universalized it in a very beautiful way. A life that's filled with that. When one comes to the end of a life with disappointment, it is very helpful to recognize what one's achievement has been. But the lines that follow, it seems to me, place God in a not very attractive way. He tells Moses to go up to the summit and gaze about, but he doesn't stop there. Be sure you look very thoroughly. West, how does he put it, and north, and south, and so forth. Look at it well, for you shall not go across yonder Jordan. It seems to me God is rubbing it in, as if to say,
I understand.
well, this is your last chance. So be thorough, but you're not going in. I also think that sends us back to Rav Lecha, which the translator who provides us with the English here, puts an exclamation point after enough, as if to say that the meaning is, you've said enough, don't bother me any longer. Be quiet. Never, and then that's reinforced. Never speak to me of this matter again. I can just imagine when my kids were young and they had a request, and I said to them, never speak to me of this matter again, because I wasn't complying with their request. How harsh that seems to me.
Yeah, I agree with you. And so whoever wrote these lines, of course, the Jewish tradition is, not the Jewish tradition, but a Jewish tradition is that the whole Torah was written by Moses, including this passage and including everything, including the account of his death. Moses wrote it all. Okay, but that's the Orthodox view. It's not my view. But I agree with you. This doesn't paint God in a very nice picture, right? And
I'm reminded, Rabbi, of God speaking to Abraham. Take your son, and then rubbing it in, your only son, etc., etc.
Right. Yes. I don't think. I think I definitely want to validate your reading and just tell you that the rabbis read it in a different way. They said, "Look, Moses, everything that you want to see, you can see now. You don't have to physically be there. You can look and see all that your people are going into, and it's beautiful and it's fantastic. And you look in all the different directions and take it in, because this is what you've brought them to. And so, in a way, that's more comfort than it is rubbing your nose into it. It's saying, I want to show you all of this reality, because you've been so much. All of you have been in the desert. All you're seeing are the sand and the sand dunes, but here you're going to see this land flourishing, and understand that what you did was a good thing, Moses. That you brought them to this beautiful place. So, I want to validate your reading. And I just want you to know that there are other readings of that same text.
Thank you.
Rabbi,
Yes.
this is Miriam.
Oh, Miriam?
Hi. Yes.
Okay.
Hi, Miriam Mazel. So, where can you find where the rabbis interpreted it in that nicer way?
Oh, where can you find it? You can. I think you can even find it in the Orthodox translation, the Stone edition of the Bible. But all these arguments, and I can't tell you where else except to say, I think you'll find it in when I say the rabbis say, I'm quoting either from the Torah, that's essentially the Talmud, or the subsequent rabbis who interpreted it, including Rashi and actually before Rashi, there's the books of Midrash, of commentaries. So I don't remember exactly where you can, but that's where you would find these other interpretations. But there are zillions of interpretations out there, and you can study them day and night. But yes, there are these other interpretations, and but I wish I don't have the quote, the specific. I'm sorry, but
no, that's okay. Thank you.
Because a lot of what I come up with are things that have been planted in my head. I don't remember exactly where I got them from. Maybe they came from God herself, but probably not. Probably I feel like I'm building on. I have a lot of original ideas, but I'm building. 1%, less than 1% of my ideas come from my head, and 99% come from all that I've studied and learned and whatever. So I don't like to take credit for any of it, and say, it's part of an ongoing tradition in which there's so many alternative voices. And
Michael, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Regarding that line 26, Vayomer Yud-He Vav-He Eli Ravlach, and here in the stone Chumash, the Orthodox Chumash, the quick it says your interpretation, and then the gentleman who just preceded you. It is too much for you. He translated it, instead of saying enough, they translated it as it is too much for you, which is actually a more precise translation. Ravlach. It is too much for you. By saying this, lest people say that the master is unduly harsh and the student is unduly persistent. Alternatively, it could be rendered, there is so much for you. That is, God assured Moses that an enormously abundant reward, greater even than the land, awaited him in the world to come. And that's Rashi's interpretation. So it starts with Rashi, and it just proliferates through all of the interpretations of the various commentators through the years.
Right. I got it. You have to be in that part of the tradition that that takes the world to come as a
as a given,
a like compensation. But that move towards compensating us in another world for what's going on here, not one I'm going to take. It's not a path I want to take. I want to take Shemayim Shemayim Lashem Ba'aretz Natan Livnei Adam. We are here in this world, on this land, and there are disappointments, and it's okay.
I interpret it as God saying, Moses, be cool. This is small potatoes, man. We got big things. We're going to say big things.
Well, and if in that way we can continue to read, because what Moses is about to do is now to be able to recount the 10 speech acts, and
it's in chapter 5.
Okay, so
should we go to the Aseret HaDibrot?
Yes, let's go to Aseret HaDibrot, and you're going to chant them for us.
Sure.
So can you turn it to chapter 5?
Yes, I'm getting there. Are you seeing the scrolling happening?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, don't look at the screen when that happens. It'll guarantee you nausea. Okay.
So, Ami, do you want to read the English first, and then up to there?
Well, maybe someone else can read the English, and I'll chant the Hebrew. Is that okay?
May I read that?
Absolutely. Sharon.
Moses summoned all the Israelites and said to them, "Hear, O Israel, the laws and rules that I proclaim to you this day. Study them and observe them faithfully. The Lord our God made a covenant with us at Horeb. It was not with our fathers that the Lord made this covenant, but with us, the living, every one of us who is here today. Face to face, the Lord spoke to you on the mountain out of the fire. I stood between the Lord and you at that time to convey the Lord's words to you. For you were afraid of the fire and did not go up the mountains, saying," meaning the Lord saying.
Okay, let's stop here for a second. Just to say that this passage is one of those cited for a traditional view that says that we were all at Sinai. Or we were all, Horeb is another name for the Sinai experience. We were all there. Everyone, not just the ones who were living then, because now he's talking to a crowd of people. The eldest are 60 years old, so they might have been there, but there are a lot of other people who are, let's say, under 40 years old. They weren't even born at that time. Right. Who he's talking to. He's talking to all of those people, and he's saying, we were all there. And so the tradition goes on to say, we were all there. And sometimes I've had the experience, and I know many, many other people have had the experience of encountering somebody in their life and saying, I feel like I knew you before. And the other person saying, yeah, it was at Sinai.
Wonderful.
Or when you don't know the origin of a melody, when you sing a nigun, and they ask you who wrote that, and you say, it's from Sinai.
Right. So, but there's something beautiful about that because the tradition also says, I mean, now we say, if you convert to Judaism, the reason you're converted was that your soul was at Sinai also.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
How beautiful that is.
You don't have to be born into this people to be part of this people. And to affirm it, say your soul was there along with all the other souls. We were all there at Sinai. And anyway, this is the source of that tradition. And now, Sharon, you could go back and read this part, which traditionally people stand for, but it's okay if you don't. Go ahead.
Okay, and so the Lord is saying, I, the Lord, am your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, the house of bondage. You shall have no other gods beside me. You shall not make for yourself a sculptured image, any likeness of what is in the heavens above, or on the earth below, or in the waters below the earth. You shall not bow down to them or serve them. For I, the Lord, your God, am an impassioned God, visiting the guilt of the parents upon the children, upon the third and upon the fourth generations of those who reject me, but showing kindness to the 1,000th generation of those who love me and keep my commandments. You shall not swear falsely by the name of the Lord your God, for the Lord will not clear one who swears falsely by his name. Observe the Sabbath day and keep it holy, as the Lord your God has commanded you. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the 7th day is a Sabbath of the Lord your God. You shall not do any work, you, your son or your daughter, your male or female slave, your ox or your ass, or any of your cattle, or the stranger in your settlements, so that your male and female slave may rest as you do. Remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt, and the Lord your God freed you from there with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm. Therefore, the Lord your God has commanded you to observe the Sabbath day. Honor your father and your mother, as the Lord your God has commanded you, that you may long endure, and that you may fare well in the land that the Lord your God is assigning to you. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife. You shall not crave your neighbor's house or his field or his male or female slave or his ox or his ass or anything that is your neighbor's. The Lord spoke those words, those and no more, to your whole congregation at the mountain with a mighty voice out of the fire and the dense clouds.
Okay, stop there and we're going to read that in Hebrew. Ami's going to read it in Hebrew now. I think is. Ami?
Yeah, I'll start from the actual Anochi.
Yeah.
Okay. Anochi omed bein Adonai uveinechem ba'ed hahi lehagid lachem et dvar Adonai ki yireitem mipnei ha'esh v'lo alitem bahar lemor. Anochi Adonai Elohecha Asher hotzeiticha me'eretz Mitzrayim mi'beit avadim. Lo yeh lecha Elohim acherim al panai. Lo tasa lecha fesel kol tmuna asher bashamayim mimal va'asher ba'aretz mitachat va'asher b'mayim mitachat la'aretz lo tishtachave lehem ve'lo te'avdehem Ki anochi Adonai Elohecha Elkana Poked Avon Avot al Banim Ve'al Shileshim Ve'al Ribeim Lesonai Ve'yoseh Chesed La'alafim Leohavai Ulshomrei Mitzvotai Lo tisa et shem Adonai Elohecha lashav, ki lo yenakeh Adonai et asher yisa Hashem et shemo lashav. Shamor et yom hashabat lekadsho ka'asher tzivcha Adonai Elohecha. Sheshet yamim ta'avod ve'asita kol melachtecha ve'yom hashvi'i Shabbat l'Adonai Elohecha lo ta'aseh chol melacha ata uvincha uvitecha ve'yavdecha va'amatecha ve'shorcha ve'chamorcha ve'chol behemtecha V'gercha asher bisharecha leman yanuach avdecha va'amatcha kamocha V'zacharta ki eved hayita be'eretz Mitzrayim vayotziacha Adonai Elohecha misham beyad chazaka Uvizroa netuya al kein tzivcha Adonai Elohecha la'asot et yom hashabbat. Kabed et avicha ve'et imecha ka'asher tzivcha Adonai Elohecha leman yarichun yamecha uleman yitav lach Al ha'adama asher Adonai Elohecha noten lach Lo tirtzach ve'lo tinaf ve'lo tignov ve'lo ta'aneh v'reacha et shahav ve'lo tachmod eshet reyecha ve'lo titaveh Beit reyecha sadehu ve'avdo va'amato shoro v'chamoro v'chol asher l'reyecha. Can I just say one thing very quickly? And many of you know this, but there's a couple of differences from this version of the Aseret HaDibrot, the 10 utterances, from the one in Exodus chapter 20, and one of them has to do with women's the role of women in the last utterance. V'lo tachmod eshet reyecha, you shall not covet the wife of your neighbor. And then the sentence stops, and then it goes on to say, you shall not crave their possessions. But in the version in Exodus, it's all one sentence. In other words, the eshet reyecha, the wife, the spouse of your neighbor, is considered property, as is the cattle and everything else. And here there's a split made. That's one interesting difference. And the other one here is the rationale for celebrating Shabbat is based more on because we were slaves ourselves and we were led out of Egypt with God's strength. And in the first version, it's because of the miracle of creation. Yeah. There's interesting differences, but I defer back.
No, yes, and I was definitely going to talk about that. So I'll just add a little PS onto what you just said, which is that the why would there be these differences? Why at the end, where the people are now, do they need to hear the explanation of Shabbos in the way it's done here rather than in the way it's done in Exodus? And my quick answer is because now they're about to enter into the land, and here they need to be reminded that God is not only the God of the universe that created the universe, but that God is a force of transformation, that God is the force of liberation, and that this is sort of that this is a Jewish liberation theology that that says, God is the force that makes possible the transformation from that which is to that which ought to be. Now, to get where I get that from, I'd like to also go for a second to the Shema, and which is at the beginning of the next chapter. So this reading this week has so many things that one could talk about for a long time. I don't know if you can see this, that I'm holding up a book called Shema. It's a whole book about the Shema. And there have been endless amounts of conversations through the ages about what we've just read and the Shema. So Yitz, are you still there? Yitz husband Hankins?
I'm here.
Okay, would you like to read the Shema, which is on chapter 6, sentence, sentence 4?
It's on the screen.
Can you get us there?
It's there.
Okay, great. So, Yitz, would you like to read that? I'm not hearing you. Maybe
He's not unmuted.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Here I'm telling you to listen, and I'm not muted, and I'm sorry.
It's Shema, not mute.
Okay.
Good.
I'm sorry. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בהם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך.
Beautiful. So, and do you want to read it in English?
Sure. Hear, O Israel, the Eternal is our God, the Eternal alone. You shall love the Eternal One, your God, with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your might. Take to heart these instructions with which I charge you this day. Impress them upon your children. Recite them when you stay at home, and when you are away, when you lie down and when you get up. Bind them as a sign on your hand and let them serve as a symbol on your forehead. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates.
Beautiful. So now you might wonder why I want to do it this way, but I'm now wanting to go back to the question that I said we would talk about today, which is the Jewish way of dealing with our suffering. And what I want to point out is that this reading today is always takes place on the Shabbos after Tisha B'Av. And you might say, why in the world would this be the way why aren't we have a reading that's more about how to overcome suffering? And I want to suggest that, and this one I don't think I've heard from anybody else, so it's out here on a limb. I want to suggest that that our answer to the suffering is to study and to teach. That is to go in and say, okay, yes, there's a lot of evil in the world, a lot of pain that we as a people have experienced, and the way we deal with it is by focusing on a message that we have to bring to the world that empowers us as individuals and as a community to say, here is what makes us, what makes our lives worthwhile, that we have this contribution to make, this way of thinking about the world. And that provides us with the consolation that the Haftorah, which we started our service today with a melody from Nachamu Ami, be comforted. But wait a second, telling somebody to be comforted when they're in pain is not necessarily going to comfort them. Okay, it's like, what? Okay, how am I going to be comforted when all these terrible things are happening? So the rabbis made sure that this would always be read right after the Shabbos, after Tisha B'Av, when we announced, when we went through all the pain and all the suffering and focused on that. So that's one level of what is, so here it says, V'shinantam levanecha, you should teach it to your children. This is the legacy that we have. This is what we have in the world. We have these teachings. And these teachings are something that is so beautiful and so deep and so important that thousands of years later, okay, people are fighting to get the words of the 10 speech acts. Okay, it's not commandments, by the way. I'll get to that in a second. But these 10 speech acts on their, put it out in their schoolrooms, and there's so much of humanity has been influenced by the first reading that we did of the 10 speech acts. In Hebrew, it's Aseret HaDibrot, not Aseret HaMitzvot. And by the way, to think of it as commandments is to lessen, there's another way of thinking about what they are. And that is, and this is something that I've taught before here, but that I want to repeat again. The Hebrew of these commandments, of everything that people interpret as commandment, is the same tense, exactly the same tense as future tense in Hebrew. Okay, so that you can read all of these not as you must do this, but rather as when we create a world which really is based on understanding of the God of the universe, this is what will be. It will be this way. This is how it will look. This is what will feel like. If you read those 10 speech acts, not as a command to you, but as an invitation to imagine the world that we want to build, then you, okay, and that the Hebrew is in future tense. It's understood by many as a commandment, but all the commandments are actually can be read also as future tense of what will be. Now, what will be when what? Okay, well, that's where the Shema comes in. That's why the Shema is here. Okay, it says Shema Yisrael Yud He Vav He Eloheinu Yud He Vav He Echad. And what is Yud He Vav He? Well, from my reading of it, and there are lots of different readings about it. those four letters, Yud Hey Vav Hey, do not when you try and sound them out, they don't sound out as Adonai. That's how we've been saying it, or Hashem, the name, whatever. We don't want to go into it because we don't. The tradition was that you should never try to pronounce it. You shouldn't say that, because that itself, there are traditions in Judaism that say that's a shorthand. Actually, God's name has every letter of the Hebrew alphabet twice, and that would be hard to pronounce. Okay, so in other words, what's being said here is that this Yud Hey Vav Hey is somewhat of a mystery. But when I look at those four letters, many people today are moving in this direction of saying it's about being. It's about being. Hoveh, Hey Vav Hey is the present tense, and Yud in front of it, the Yud in front of a verb, often signals future tense. So if you read Yud Hey Vav Hey and see that it is that which is being moved and transformed into that which can be and should be. Okay. If every time you read the Bible or the Tanakh, or the Torah, and you come across the word God, if you can find the Hebrew and it says Yud Hey Vav Hey, then read it this way: the force in the universe that makes possible the transformation from that which is to that which could and should be. Let me try that again. What's translated as God, read it this way: the force in the universe that makes possible the transformation from that which is to that which could and should be. Okay, that's the force that gets translated as God. So God here, now look, I know that if you read the Bible or the Tanakh, very often God is portrayed as a big man in heaven. Okay, and then we've had thousands of years of people praying to God, saying, intervene and do this, that, and the other thing, and then disappointed because God doesn't intervene. And in fact, that's so we go back to the all our suffering that we studied on Tisha B'Av, and all that suffering. What's that about? Well, that suffering is not something that God is willing. It is suffering that will not be alleviated by our prayers to God. The prayers may be very valuable on the level of being able to express to the universe what we wish for, what we want. And I don't mean to claim that I know enough about the way the universe works to say that there's no impact on the universe of our prayers. I don't want to say that. But I do want to say that there is no big man in heaven sitting there deciding, you get rewarded, you get punished, like that. Of course, this is an upheaval of much of the way people have read Torah and read our tradition in the past. But I think it is based on a legitimate reading of why they chose Yud Hey Vav Hey, those four letters, to indicate that God is the force in the universe that makes possible transformation. And if you get that, then that's our answer in part to the suffering. Yes, there is suffering, but we believe in a force in the universe that makes possible a transformation of the world to a different kind of world in which that suffering will no longer be there. Now, if you can say that's scant, that's not really going to give me the nachamu. It's not going to give me the comfort. Okay, I acknowledge it's not going to give you the comfort. We're not going to actually, by recognizing that there's a force in the universe that makes possible the transformation. Where is that force being manifested? Well, the answer is, here it works right with our tradition. We were created in the image of this God. So another way of thinking of it is to say, we are part of the unity of all being. We are part of the force in the universe that makes possible transformation. Are we the whole of it, the human race? That would be a sad story, because the human race may be out of business within the next 100 or 200 years, maybe even sooner, given the way we're treating the planet Earth. There may not be a human race. And I used to think, well, if that's true, then I'll know that when that happens, I can say there's no God. Okay. But now I realize, wait a second. The scientists now tell us that there's a very strong chance that among the, now they claim 100 billion galaxies in the universe. Of the 100 billion galaxies in the universe, they say there's a strong chance that there are several hundred of those galaxies that have a sun or something comparable that makes possible the evolution of life and consciousness and other planets. So that may be that we are, now think of it this way, that we are to God as a part of our body. Let's say a liver cell is to our totality of our consciousness. The liver cell gets messages and works with other parts of the livers and then with the whole body. And there are people who have shown that when you do a certain kind of meditation, and you can actually affect parts of your body, directing your consciousness towards that part, that you can actually have an effect on it. That's who we are in relationship to the God. We are, let's say, the Earth and all life on this planet, evolving for the last 5 billion years, is like one of the limbs of God. Okay, but the totality of God is all that is, was, and ever will be. That's who God is. All that is, was, and ever will be. But don't think of that now in terms of material reality, because there is no such thing as material reality. Material reality is a concept that we came up with in order to have power over parts of the world. And thank God for science. I'm totally for it. Yay, science. Go for it, science. But there's another thing that that I'm very much against, which is scientism. Scientism is the view that science is the practice that says study the workings of the material realities of the universe and use empirical methods and measurements. But scientism, and they come up with great stuff, ray science. But scientism is the view that everything that is and everything that can be known is that which can be verified through empirical observation and or measured. But it turns out that much of human life, the things that we value, for example, ethics, aesthetics, love, kindness, generosity, and consciousness itself. Now, consciousness itself, these cannot be measured, but the internal experience that we have of that consciousness. And some people say, yeah, but where the scientists are working on in it, and they're finding there's strong correlations between what's happening in your brain and what you're thinking. Yeah, so I'm not denying that there is that having a body is a necessary correlate for having consciousness, but consciousness cannot be reduced to some material state inside your brain. Your brain is a necessary but not sufficient condition for having consciousness. So, without going too far into that particular part, I'll just say that this is what it is to say, Shema Yisrael. Listen to this, Israel. Yud He Vav He is our God, the transformative power of the universe. the force that makes possible a transformation from that which is to that which ought to be. And Adonai, Yud-Heh, Vav-Heh, is echad, is one, okay? That is, it's the totality. It is the totality. And every specific is part of that totality. Every specific being, every specific planet, every specific galaxy, they're all part of that one. So instead of saying, as some people who were trying to make religion sweet, said, well, God is within us. Okay, they say, yeah, sure, God's within us, but we are within God. We are within God. That God is the ultimate reality. That God is the ultimate truth of the world. And this is what's so revolutionary about this tradition, because this tradition is saying what is not all that can be. That in fact, this is the message from the core of Shema, that the oneness of all is something which is in the process of evolution and transformation, and that we are made in its image, and we are the part of transforming it. And it's a part, in other words, so if we fail, if the human race fails here, it'll happen someplace else. Okay, now there are other planets, there are other possible forms of life and consciousness in different ways, and that we haven't discovered them yet. That's it's too bad. If we could save the planet from environmental destruction, maybe we can, maybe we can't. I hope we can. I know it's our possibility that we can, but whether it's the actuality of what we'll do, that's a choice that is yet to be made by the human race. We have to, our task right now is to encourage people to make that choice, and with all that it would entail, to build a world of love, kindness, and generosity. And you want some details, read my book, Revolutionary Love, where I try to lay out a strategy for how to get there. But in any event, what the Torah is teaching us is that we are that we, created in God's image, are able to affirm the unity of all being with the Shema, and to say that that the reality of the force, the spiritual force of the universe, is that it is a force for transformation. And then that's why this week we get a version of the 10 speech acts, which justifies itself not only in terms of, well, God created the totality, but in terms of, guess what? That God is also the force that makes transformation possible. So that's why Shabbos, you're doing Shabbos, not just because God created the world, but because God brought us out of Egypt, brought us out of our oppression, moved us from a state of consciousness in which we thought this is all that can be. We're oppressed, we'll always be oppressed. And no, the message of the Jewish people has been the oppression can be transformed, and that we can be elements in that transformation. No wonder then that all through our history, every ruling elite has hated us. And because every ruling elite has been teaching the opposite, that the way things are is the only way things can be. And that you have to be realistic, and accommodate yourself to that which is. And this message is so deep inside of almost everybody who's grown up in a class society, in a patriarchal society, that we all have a part of ourselves that says, I don't know if I can believe it or not, okay? So to believe in God is to believe in the possibility of possibility. To believe in God is to believe in the possibility of possibility, okay? Not the inevitability of it. It's not inevitable that this world is going to survive. It's not inevitable that the kindness and generosity that we've poured out into the world is going to have the consequence that God is saying, or God is being heard as saying in the Aseret HaDibrot, in these 10 speech acts, in which one of them says, because God will visit the sins of the fathers and on the children for the third and fourth generation. Okay, that's pretty downer, right? But we all know, if we know anything about psychology, certainly the psychology that's developed over the course of the past let's say 100 years, that it is totally true that what the distortions in our life get passed on to our children and our grandchildren, and maybe even our great-grandchildren. You know, there's so much of what we feel and think, etc., has been passed on to us from our parents, grandparents, etc. So yeah, for 3 or 4 generations. But then the Torah goes on to say, but the love, the kindness, the generosity, that's going to be passed on to 100 generations. Wait, is it 100 or 1,000? Whatever.
1,000.
1,000 generations. And that's the optimistic part of the Jewish message also. That it's going to be passed on to 1,000 generations. Okay, that's right here in what we read in the 10 speech acts. That God's compassion is going to be passed on from generation to generation for 1,000 generations. Now you might say, well, hey, then why didn't it show up already? And I say it has. It has. The very fact that most people today are not slaves. Not that slavery has been eliminated, but most people today are not slaves, and they were when this Torah was written. Most people in the ancient world were slaves. The vast majority of people were slaves. Okay, huge liberation has taken place there. The most significant liberation that's taken place since then, since slavery was transcended, has been the women's liberation. It's certainly the greatest miracle that we've lived through, but it's really the greatest miracle of the past 2,000 years in my vision. It's an amazing reality that now, have we beat all forms of patriarchy? No. Have I beat all forms of patriarchy inside me? No. Okay. I'm as much affected by it as everyone else. And similarly, racism, sexism, homophobia, xenophobia, all of it. All of us have some of that in us, but that we've seen transformations, real transformations happen. Okay, the situation of women today is not what it was even 70 years ago. It's really different. It's not enough. It's not where we can stop, but it's something, it's an amazing miracle that we've lived through, or that we've benefited from to some extent. And similarly, the situation around racism, we all know how much it's not enough and how much it's got to be struggled against. And yet there's been some movement and some consciousness and some change that's happening right as we live right now. And many of you and us have been part of making that happen. And then we look back at our lives and say, we didn't do anything. Well, look, it's not that you as individuals could by yourself be the God of the universe and change it, okay? It's rather that we can be part of social change movements to do something to make the world different. I don't want to, I don't want to minimize the suffering and the suffering of our people, but I want to say, put it in this context, okay? Now, so now the other thing that I said I would talk about today, and anybody tell me what time it is so I know?
3:20.
Oh, yeah.
So that's 12:20.
12:20. All right, I'm supposed to end pretty soon, and we have to do a few little prayers to end. But look, the other element of what? Ami, do you want to say something? Okay, what I'd like to suggest, Ami, do you know how to put people in small groups?
No. I haven't done that before, but
okay.
Does anybody else? If
Participants.
Oh, participants. Okay.
I think so.
Okay.
All right. And yeah.
Is there a way to follow dots? More.
Oh, yes.
More.
We get it. We won't go into small groups today.
I'm sorry.
Like,
Unless someone else can be a co-host and do it.
no, it's all right.
Okay.
We're
Sorry.
late. So maybe we should just say now, if anybody wants to raise points, argue with me, whatever, say
Yes.
anything, please do.
Yes. Go ahead.
Rabbi and friends, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your might. A issue that I have not resolved completely is how do I love a force, a mystery, a soul stuff in the universe? I don't know what terms quite to use. I can love individuals. I can love a piece of art. I can love a landscape. Sometimes I can love a group of people. But how do I love the impalpable God? That's a problem.
Yes, it's a problem. You're right. And what I want to say to you is it's like loving the planet also. You're loving a force in reality. It's an aspect of reality that that most people don't think about or don't bring to their consciousness. But so I'd say maybe it would have been better if it said rejoice in the God of, in this force of transformation. Be happy that you're created in the image of it. So I don't have a formula for how to love God except to say affirm this reality. Allow it to sink into your heart that you are part of the God energy of the universe, even though a small little part, like a little liver cell in your body, a small little part, but nevertheless a part of the force that makes possible transformation. That force is something that we can rejoice in having been created in that image of that force. And yeah, I mean, look, it's, I know it takes a leap of consciousness, but just like I can love, let's say, the music of Beethoven, I can love it. It's not the same kind of love as the love that I have for my darling wife, but it can be, love is an okay word to use about it. So you have a good question. I have a poor answer.
Thank you.
I'd like to go back to transformation, which was your theme. I think it fits so well with this parasha, following your thread, because in a way, on a micro level, this is what happens for Moses. He goes through this tremendous disappointment, and you helped us see that from that, he is directed by God and he embraces it. He gives the commandments again, the speech acts to the people. He is moving into what has been accomplished, and he is moving into the promised land in a sense with the people by not withdrawing. He's not using sour grapes. He's embracing this. He's moving forward. And to Ami's point about the differences between the speech acts in Exodus and the speech acts now, they too reflect transformations, even on a small scale. I'd venture to respond to the change in the position of women in Ami's reaction, in that we have gone through big changes after the daughters of Zelophehad, and after encountering other cultures that had Sumerian priestesses and other positions of women other than just possessions and objects. And so I think as a people we have learned, and this is very hopeful. I want to say that this gathering has moved me beyond a distaste for Tish B'Av. I really was stuck in suffering.
Great, thank you. Anyone else want to say something here? Reactions, upsets, arguments, upset, anything's okay.
Be sure to unmute yourself if you'd like to speak.
Yeah.
Lynn, unmute yourself.
Does Lynn want to speak? We don't hear anything yet.
Sorry.
There, I did it.
Okay, thank you very much. I've been thinking a great deal about the understanding. It's a phrase, but it is, the devil is in the details, but the process is that movement, which is what we're talking about. But how do you love a process? And this is part of the tradition, which is so enormously important to be able to pass on to those who come after, that this sense of getting caught in what are the details sometimes gets us in the mud, is what I could certainly say. And I think it's so interesting that we're living in this kind of a something that just goes around and around, and we aren't able to see further unless something helps catch us. And I've been looking at what's happening with science and being able to build something that can deal with a restructuring through, what is it called, structural biology, in order to be able to change something which is, it's got to be by deception that there is some change that takes place. That's something interesting to me. Why do we talk so much about the choice of those who are tricksters in those heroes that we look at who have to wrestle a great deal? It is something which is a part of that force that has an ability to, I can't use the word trick us, but it does kind of interrupt us so that the process that we think it's going to happen is in some way moved in another direction.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else want to say something here?
Yes, I do. I hope it's not for another time. While we were talking about Moses, and whenever I think about Moses, I think about his wife Zipporah. I'm interested in knowing whether the tradition assigns a significant role to Moses's wife. What do we know about that relationship?
We have only a few minutes left. I want to make sure that people who haven't had a chance yet get.
Oh, sure.
If there's nobody else who hasn't had it, who wants.
Dale wants to speak.
Dale, go ahead.
This is the critically important part of the era that we're in, and that is leadership. And what this mantle of leadership entails, in this awakening of ourselves and who we are, is taking us out of the position of leadership as fatally flawed mortals and seeking the highest light. And we have elders and councils of communities that are rotating constantly. But it's the search of the highest light. And so our transformation is taking place from leadership of mortals' will and self-will to the highest light of our Creator's inspiration on man. So now civilization will move as quickly as thought, because leadership is not a possession or an entitlement. It's an inspiration that comes from our Creator, and that light will continually expand freely. And That's where we're going to get our freedom.
Beautiful. Anyone else want to say something right now? If not, I'd like to say we're going to end the Torah study first by saying the blessing on page 69. If you have that book, the prayer book, page 69, in the second half of it, it goes like this: Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Torah.
Amen. Yishmerach Avotenu Avram Yitzchak v'Yaakov Imotenu Tzarech Barach Avoleya Yivarach v'Yirapeh Acholim. May she bless our ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. Send a blessing of healing to all those in our community who are in need of healing. And you can put the names of anybody that you are praying for in the chat, or just call them out. This is a moment to put forward your desire, your call for whatever healing forces there are in the universe to heal those who are in need of healing. Yishlach lahem refuat nefesh refuat aguf hashtav hagala v'zman karib v'nomar amen. Send to them the healing of body and soul, and let them return to us fully healed, and let us say amen.
Amen.
Now on to page, see what's page for the closing of the Torah service is,
Michael?
yes.
Could I just say one thing before we leave? The Torah study is a word, just one line on, from the Haftorah, the portion of the prophets that we read afterwards, and that we sang Nachamu, Nachamu, be comforted, my people. But right after that, there's a line that says, "A voice calls in the wilderness, open the way to the Holy One. Straight through the heart of the desert is a path to our God." And a variety of melodies have been put to this beautiful phrase. But for me, in terms of comfort, this is, what can we do but open the way to the Holy One? Our hearts are broken, and all we can hope for is that our hearts will follow the path in this desert of sorrow to eventually reach 7 weeks from now, the high holidays, where teshuvah happens and healing happens throughout this journey of the next 7 weeks. So may we all have opened the way for us to the Holy One. May our hearts be open, and may our direction be guided to healing and to eventually to teshuvah. Straight through the heart of the desert is a path to our God. It's a beautiful Haftorah. If you haven't read it, you really should. It's Isaiah chapter 40.
Beautiful. Thank you for saying that.
Michael, can you speak up? No, you're hard to hear.
Okay, thank you for sharing that, Ami. And I'm hoping that any of you who are still here, who will send you information about when we're doing our next Torah study. But I'm hoping that also that you will spread the word to your friends and neighbors to do high holidays with us. It'll be like this. Unfortunately, one of the high points of our high holidays in the past has been the community and hugging each other and being together and dancing outside together. But with all, there are limitations, not because of us, but because of the pandemic. And so, still, I hope that you will eventually sign up for high holidays. We'll probably have some way of doing that up in by the end of this week or the end of next week. Plan to spend high holidays with us. I promise you it'll be a moving experience in some way. It'll, or at least I'd say it gives you the opportunity to have it. So on the page 73, if you have that available to you,
I can screen share it if you would like.
Yeah, okay. Can
Let
you
me
get
try. Okay. Let's see here. Here we go.
okay.
Hold on. Ay, where'd it go? Well, so much for that.
Okay. So I'll just read it.
Okay.
Remember who we really are. We are the platform on which the evolution of consciousness of the universe is about to take its next step toward fuller awareness. We are the universe's best hope for bringing an awareness of unity and interconnection and interdependence. I think I should modify that in light of what I just talked about, because now we know that the hope may also include other planets and other consciousness forces and other planets. We're one of the universe's best hope. We are the vehicle through which this world will be healed and repaired. And that means everybody here, all of us, can participate in that healing and repair. For a brief moment, we have come to consciousness. We get to experience the mystery and wonder of all being, and then we will pass on. While we are here, while we still have life and consciousness, we can praise God and sing the song of all creatures. Hallelujah. The bottom of the page. I have given you a good teaching, good vision for building your lives, so don't abandon my Torah. It is a tree of life to those who hold fast to it, and all whose supporters are happy. Its ways are ways of pleasantness, and all its paths are peace. Turn us unto you, God, and we shall return. Renew our days as of old. Natati lachem Torah. Me'oshar deracheha darchei noam v'chol netzivoteha shalom hashivenu Adonai elecha benashuva Kadesh Yameinu Kekedem. Ay ay la 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 lam. Ay ay la 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 lam. Ay ay la 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 lam. Ay ay la 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 lam. Ay ay la 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 lam. Ay ay la 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 ay la dum ay da 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 dum ay da dum. So at the end of page 75, you'll find the last little lines of the Aleinu prayer.
Please speak up, Michael. We're having trouble hearing you.
Yes, at the page 75, at the last lines on page 75. Ve'emar ve'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz vayam hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. On page 76, I want to say Kaddish for all those people who have passed in the as a result of the pandemic, as well as invite you to say Kaddish for anybody in your family or anybody that you know who has died in this past year.
Please unmute yourselves so we can hear your names, the names.
If you want to call out any names of people that you're saying it for. Okay. So just for all those who have died in this past, who have died as a result of this pandemic or any other, for any other reason, or for that matter, let's also include all those who have been murdered by police or by repressive governments, both in the United States and all around the world. Gadal v'kadash shemei Rabbah, ve'amad divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayechon v'yamechon v'chayedecho be'Yisrael ba'agala v'zman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehei shmei
Rabba mevorach le'olam.
Amen. Yibarach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. Yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudsha v'yichu. Le'ela mikol bechata v'yitrata tishbechata v'nechemata damiran be'alma v'imru Amen.
Amen.
Shlomo Rabba min Shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'al kol yoshvei tevel, v'imru Amen.
Amen.
Oseh shalom b'mroma, v'yaseh shalom aleinu, v'al kol Yisrael, v'al kol yoshvei tevel, v'imru Amen. So we'll do the Kiddush. V'shamru v'nei Yisrael, et השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש, שבת ויהי נפש, שבת ויהי נפש, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. Remember the seventh day to keep it holy. 6 days you should do all your work and labor. On the seventh day of the Shabbos to God, on it you should do no work, neither you nor anybody visiting within your gates, any members of your family, any of your animals. For on 6 days God made heaven and earth, the sea and all that is within it. On the seventh day she rested. Therefore God blessed the seventh day and made it holy. Al-Ken Berach Adonai Yom HaShabbat v'yikadshehu, Baruch et Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Borei peri
Agafen. L'chaim.
And let's sing Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, good Shabbos, Shabbat Shalom,
Good Shabbos.
Shabbat, Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos, Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Thank you for all of you who stayed here and have a wonderful, restful, spiritual and soul renewing rest of Shabbat and a healthy week and healthy times ahead.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. You can unmute yourselves now and let's all say Shabbat Shalom. You know how to do it? Unmute yourselves. Hey. Okay, virtual Shabbat Shalom to everyone. A good week to everyone.
Yaribain alam ve'omaya antumahaka melech malchaya oivad gevutech v'timchaya avat kad kashecha yairaylaram ayaraylaram 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 yaribon alam ve'amaya antu malka melech malchaya. Ami, do you have a favorite? Okay, I guess not. So I'll just sing one more. Tzur mishlo mishlo achanu, tzur mishlo achanu, tzur mishlo achanu, barechu emunai sabanu vehatanu kidvar Adonai. Tzur mishlo achanu, barechu emunai saban vehatanu kidvar Adonai. Hazan, 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 hazan et olamo, hazan, 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 hazan et olamo. Hazan et olamo, ro'enu avinu, achanu et lachmo, v'yenu shatinu, keinu delishmo, hale, lo befinu, amanu v'yaninu, kadosh kadonai, tzur mishlo, mishlo achanu, tzur mishlo, mishlo achanu, tzur mishlo achanu, barechu emunai, sabanu ve'otanu, kidvar Adonai, tzur Shlachanu barechu emunai sabanu ve'atanu kidvar Adonai. So Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you so much for being with us today. Now